The handheld game console scene has been having a bit of a resurgence lately. As the technology has gotten better and better, we've seen a ton of PC gaming companies throw their hats into the handheld gaming scene. The Steam Deck and the ROG Ally both released a couple years ago, and they launched to critical acclaim and developed intense fan bases. And a few years later, we have the follow-up consoles to those original releases. We have the ROG Ally X and the Steam Deck OLED. Let's pit these things up against each other and see which one of them is better. Make sure to drop a like if you like this video, and if you want to become a part of the channel, make sure to subscribe. And don't forget to comment your thoughts in the comments below. And if you don't have anything to say but want to help out with the engagement of the video, go ahead and drop your favorite emoji. First and foremost, let's clarify that these are both gaming consoles. A game console is a specialized computer that is specifically made for primarily playing games. But game consoles can do more than just play games. They can have cable boxes in them, web browsers, they can have fully functional computers in them. What matters is that they are developed as hardware to specifically play games. And these two systems are that. Both of these machines are designed from the ground up to play games, which is why they're both handhelds with game console ergonomics and game console buttons. They're made to play video games. These are game consoles. As such, I want to grade these based on how good they are at letting the user pick them up and play games. So let's see how good these things are. Starting with the design, the Steam Deck is larger than the Ally X. It allows for a larger display and more comfortable ergonomics. The Ally X is thinner and smaller at the expense of those things. With more shallow grips and less valuable back buttons, the Ally X keeps itself smaller than the Steam Deck, which makes it more comfortably portable, which is really nice. That being said though, the Steam Deck does come with a very high quality travel case out of the box, and the ROG Ally X does not. Right out of the box, this ends up positioning the Steam Deck as a more comfortably portable console, but the ROG Ally X is smaller, and with an extra purchase, you can get a decent travel case for it, and it becomes a little bit more portable. Really quickly, editing Andrew here. Regarding the accessories, I put some of my favorite hardware accessories for the ROG Ally X and the Steam Deck in the description if you want to check them out. Back to the video. As you do play games on these things in all kinds of different environments though, the ergonomics are very important. Maybe I just have massive hands or something, but the ROG Ally X gives me hand cramps when I play it. It's partly because of where the sticks are placed and how the system kind of wants you to hold it. There's no comfortable place to put your pinkies, and as somebody with, I guess, bigger hands, it isn't the most comfortable thing to hold and play games on for more than 30 minutes. The Steam Deck though was definitely made with ergonomics in mind, and I've never had an issue with it. And while the ergonomics are a massive part of it being a comfortable console to play on, it also could be the fact that the games I play on the ROG Ally X are much faster, more intense, they demand a lot more finger dexterity, if you will. So keep these things in mind when you're considering which one you want to purchase, depending on your hand size, depending on the screen size, however you really want to go about it. Feel free to go to Best Buy, find a friend, test out the console, hold it, see what you like more. The buttons and the sticks on both of these systems feel fantastic. They feel very premium, no complaints there. One thing I will say as far as the button quality is my ROG Ally X does have a little bit of a squeak now on the left trigger after playing on it for a week, while my Steam Deck OLED still has a smooth and quiet trigger after months of play. Like I alluded to earlier, the stick placement on the Steam Deck OLED is symmetrical, and I find it much more comfortable for the ergonomics that it's going for. The ROG Ally X though has the right stick placed a little bit lower than the left stick, and depending on how fast the game is and how much you're really using the stick, arcing your thumb downwards to place it on the stick can be kind of uncomfortable after playing for a good while. Both of the systems do have back buttons as well. The Ally X has two buttons that protrude a little bit out of the system, and I'm not a big fan of that because it means that you have to hover your middle fingers over the buttons while holding the console, which just makes it less comfortable to hold as you cannot comfortably grip it with all of your fingers. The Steam Deck though has four back buttons that are all more recessed into the chassis itself, making it so you can really comfortably grip the entire system and still use the buttons whenever you need to use them. And I do want to say before anybody jumps in the comments, because I know they will, because ROG Ally X fanboys are quite the gatekeepers, the back button thing isn't really much of a problem. It is just worth noting because the ROG Ally X already has worse ergonomics, and these protruding back buttons do not help. They both have perfectly responsive touchscreens. I haven't had any issues with them, but the Steam Deck does also have two haptic trackpads, and these are incredible. Not only do they allow for much more control options, but they give the user an awesome solution to using a mouse. On the PC side of things, utilizing the haptic trackpads to navigate operating systems of Linux and browse through browsers browsers or folders is it's just way better on the trackpads versus the Ally X, which only has emulation for the mouse through using the right joystick, which is just inaccurate and uncomfortable. Both of the systems, though, you can use the touchscreen to navigate the desktop interfaces, which just really isn't the best way to do it anyway. So the haptic trackpads on the Steam Deck are a huge plus. And the fact that the Ally X didn't actually have any sort of comfortable mouse emulation hardware built into the system is kind of absurd to me, considering the Ally X forces you to engage with a traditional PC desktop system far more, like 1,000 times more than the Steam Deck ever does. I did complain about this in my dedicated ROG Ally X video, and somebody in the comments had told me to just get a stylus, and I ran with that a little bit, and honestly I think if ROG were to include a stylus in the system for navigating the Windows operating system, it would be an awesome solution to the problem. I don't think that as a gamer or a consumer of any products at all that you should be forced to buy an accessory and carry around an accessory just to have a comfortable user experience on the device you already purchased. So if the ROG team were to include some sort of stylus built into the system, I think that would be an awesome solution rather than going the trackpad route that the Steam Deck went. But the Steam Deck's haptic trackpads are an incredible solution to the PC gaming desktop thing on a handheld. They are awesomely intuitive and they just feel great and comfortable. And that being said, the software on these things could not be more different. The Steam Deck runs Steam OS, which is a custom operating system made by Valve that runs on Linux. The ROG Ally X runs Windows 11. And not only is Windows 11 just far from the best Windows operating system that we've ever had, it's also just a horrible operating system to run on a small handheld like this. It is incredibly tedious and all around a rather miserable experience to navigate on a tiny 6 to 7 inch touchscreen. The Ally X does come with a pre-installed software though called ROG Armory Crate, and once you've went through Windows, downloaded all the games and launchers that you want to download and play, you can normally just turn this on, boot straight into Armory Crate, and boot all the games you have installed straight through there, and that's a much better experience. Windows just is not the move on a small handheld like this. You're always reminded of it, and it's always janky and a little bit disjointed. Booting games in SteamOS goes from hitting the play button to a beautiful logo splash screen to seamlessly booting directly into the game you want to play. While on Windows, when you press the play button in the Armory Crate, the software minimizes, and then maybe the Steam window opens, or an anti-cheat window opens, and then that minimizes, maybe a black window pops up, and then it goes full screen, and then it boots into the game. Just playing into the jankiness that is Windows on a handheld console. It's all around unpolished and disappointing. SteamOS delivers on the entire user experience that you would want from a handheld gaming console, down to the sound cues for moving between windows in the UI. The Steam Deck allows you the choice though to boot into a full Linux desktop. And not only is this just better, first of all, because you have the choice. You never have to go to a traditional desktop if you don't want to. And two, you have the haptic trackpads that make navigating the Linux desktop far more comfortable than trying to clunkily tap small Windows desktop elements with the touchscreen on the ROG Ally. You can argue how useful Windows is when you want to really go in depth and do some unique things, but you can't argue how much more comfortable SteamOS is to use, especially when your primary use case for your handheld console is the thing it was designed to do, which is gaming. Both systems, through their native software being SteamOS and Armory Crate, do offer control customization. Control customization is unending on the Steam Deck. I can't even begin to touch the depth of what you can do as far as custom controls on the Steam Deck. Not only can you provide contextual mapping to every button on the system, but you can set up shift macros upon shift macros, and you can save those profiles and share them to the community, and then download other profiles that other people have made from the community, and basically just make any type of control layout you could really imagine. And all those with the depth of things you can customize into the haptic trackpads, the Steam Deck just has the most in-depth control customization that I've ever seen in my entire life. The Ally X does have customization for all of the buttons on the system, but it's nothing as deep as the Steam Deck goes. Just normal mapping and macros, which is fine. Windows does allow for tons of customization, but you have to do that through the lens of a PC, so you're going to be using poor joystick mouse emulation and a tiny touchscreen to try and navigate and download tons of different mods and files to customize it to your heart's content. And being that you really have to dive deep into interacting with Windows, deep customization of the system on the ROG Ally X just is kind of more trouble than it's worth. On the Steam Deck though, again, if you choose, you can boot into Linux, easily use the haptic trackpad's mouse emulation to navigate over to Firefox and go download Decky. You can then boot right back over to SteamOS, and then in the Steam UI, you have a very comfortable, easy to use, deep customization tool that allows you to really dive deep into SteamOS and do incredibly deep customizations to it. From system menu sounds, which you don't even have on the ROG Ally, to being able to deeply select every UI box and element and adjust it to your heart's content. The Steam Deck OLED is just so much easier and simpler to comfortably navigate and deeply customize. I do want to touch on emulation really quickly as well. I am by no means an emulation expert. That is a very deep rabbit hole to jump down. I would honestly just use EmuDeck on both Windows and SteamOS, and both of these would do emulation just fine. You can boot all of your ROMs through Emulation Station in SteamOS though, on the Steam Deck, which is just a more comfortable experience overall. That being said though, the more power on the ROG Ally X does provide a very much larger library of games that you can emulate. If you're trying to emulate PS3, PS4 games, you might want to go over to the ROG Ally X, even though a lot of those games you can just play on Steam through SteamOS on the Steam Deck. Either way, in my opinion, if you just want to play a handful of fun games that you used to play when you were younger on old consoles, I think the Steam Deck is still a much more comfortable experience. Let's talk about these displays though. The Steam Deck OLED is running a slightly larger than the ROG display. I don't actually know the exact amount. I'll put it on screen here. It is running an 800p 90Hz OLED display, while the ROG Ally X is running a 1080p 120Hz IPS panel. The Ally has a higher resolution as well as a smoother display, and those extra 40 Hz over the Steam Deck can be really comfortable in certain faster paced games. The OLED though has the OLED panel over the Ally's IPS, and even with less resolution, the pixels per inch are still so dense on the small displays of these handhelds that the OLED edges out the Ally in my opinion. The Steam Deck's 90Hz are plenty smooth for all the games I'm playing on a handheld machine, and with the OLED's color accuracy and color depth, as well as the HDR performance, which you have on the Steam Deck and not on the ROG Ally X, it is just simply a best-in-class display on the Steam Deck OLED. And I wouldn't even really say it's close. The Steam Deck OLED has one of the best displays I think we've ever seen on a handheld device. And I do say one of the best because I know Ayano has a couple handheld consoles that have absolutely breathtaking displays. Speakers on the Steam Deck are also good. They can get loud, they're immersive, and they sound great. That being said though, the ROG Ally X has some absolutely mind-blowing speakers. They get incredibly loud and they clearly cast spatial audio. I can turn them up and play Call of Duty and hear people's footsteps all around me, and on top of that, at the same time, I can wake up my girlfriend who's sleeping 2 rooms over. The speakers on the Ally X are absolutely incredible. Also, something worth mentioning really quick, the battery life on both of these things is fantastic. I can get 2 to 3 hours under heavy load in pretty much any of the more advanced games that I would play on these systems. Battery life isn't really much of a huge hurdle for these types of systems anymore. The technology has gotten past that. As far as ports go, both of these systems have a headphone jack that works just fine. I haven't tested to see if they are good with high impedance headphones. I don't even know why I would bring that up right now. I just have some high impedance headphones that I think about sometimes. The headphone jack's perfectly fine. The Steam Deck has a single USB-C port that you can plug in, works great. You can cast to a display and charge with it. The Ally X though has 2 USB-C ports, one of them being USB 4, which gives you much higher data transfer rates, and the other one is just a normal, I believe it's a USB 3 USB-C port. And this is incredible. I wish to God that the Steam Deck had 2 USB-C ports. I wish to God that my iPad had 2 USB-C ports, and even my smartphone. Honestly, anything that has a single USB-C port should have 2 USB-C ports. You never know when you're gonna need an extra one for whatever reason, and the fact that the Ally X decided to include 2 of them is wonderful, and I'm really happy with that. Both systems also have a micro SD card port to expand on the internal storage, which by the way is 1 terabyte on the ROG Ally X, and at the top SKU is 1 terabyte internal on the Steam Deck OLED. And finally, we can talk games. These are both game consoles. How do the games do? For one, the ROG Ally X can play more games than the Steam Deck can. Not only is it more powerful, but as it is a Windows-based system, it can run games games with Windows-only anti-cheats. This means that games like Call of Duty or Destiny 2 are only playable on the ROG Ally X, and those can be really great. Especially with the higher refresh rate display, I found myself really enjoying multiplayer games on the ROG Ally X. That being said though, the only games that I haven't been able to play on my Steam Deck OLED that I am playing on the ROG Ally X, I would rather play at a normal setup with more performance and a bigger display anyway. Multiplayer games are a great competitive outlet for me, so whenever I am playing them, I'm trying to do the best that I can, and so I would obviously prefer to play at a bit better of a setup that has better performance that allows me to perform just a little bit better. So it's cool, but it's kind of diminishing return to get the Ally X just to play those games on a handheld, especially considering I would just rather play them on an actual setup. Those really aren't the games that I'm looking to play on a handheld system. If they are for you, there you go, get the Ally X. The Steam Deck OLED can play pretty much anything I throw at it. I have yet to install a game or attempt to play a game on the Steam Deck OLED that I couldn't play on it. I've been playing games like Ghost of Tsushima and Elden Ring and Lord of the Rings Shadow of War and having a great time on the Steam Deck. Everything looks gorgeous on that display and it feels good. And yes, the Ally X technically gets more frames on the same games versus the Steam Deck, but I don't think that it really matters that much. And I'll be completely upfront, I am historically a PC gamer. I push as much frames as I can. I get the new refresh display when it comes out all the way, we're up to like 580 hertz now. I don't have that one, but I'd like to try it. I generally am a performance guy when it comes to PC gaming. But when you're playing games on a tiny 6 to 7 inch display like this on the go, you'll find yourself just playing games and enjoying the games. A small display like this is not where you're gonna find yourself pixel peeping or trying to have a billion frames. The Steam Deck plays games comfortably, and because of the great ergonomics, it's comfortable to play on. And on top of that, they look gorgeous on the OLED display. I wouldn't recommend playing multiplayer games on it because the second you start doing that is when you do want more frames so you can outplay the competition with any equipment that you do have access to. But in any game you find yourself just playing single player and trying to be comfy, you're gonna find yourself comfy on the Steam Deck. I can't name a game that I've had less than a minimum of 30 frames on, and that's comfortable enough to play a single player game on the go in the car. It just is. If we start getting below 30 frames, it starts to not be a very great experience, but 30 to 60 frames, they play perfectly fine. And with that, the Steam Deck OLED just kind of encourages you to play all kinds of different games because of how they show up and how they just integrate incredibly comfortably with the deck itself. And I don't really know how to put like a logistical pin on that, but I have noticed people in the Steam Deck community, as well as myself as historically a multiplayer shooter guy, have just been playing way more games and more genres than I ever would because of the Steam Deck. It's just really fun to play on the hardware of the Steam Deck, whatever the game it is. This last weekend, I was playing a ton of the Black Ops 6 beta on my ROG Ally X, but the second I wanted to play anything else like Elden Ring, which I've been playing a ton of lately, I would put it down and pick up the Steam Deck, even though Elden Ring is also installed on the ROG Ally X. The Steam Deck is just the more comfortable place to play. The ROG Ally X is a dope little gaming console, and if you want to play multiplayer games on the go, buy this one. It is $800 before tax compared to the $650 that you would spend for the Steam Deck with the same 1 terabyte internal storage. If you don't need a terabyte on your Steam Deck, there are models with less storage that are cheaper, and this makes it an even better deal than it already is compared to the ROG Ally X. The ROG Ally X does a lot of cool things, but in all honesty, it is not even close to how comfortable the user experience is on the Steam Deck OLED. The ergonomics and comfortability, as well as the simplicity and ease of use on the deck, are just that much better than the Ally. And with the depth of customization and the fact that you get a really solid travel case right out of the box, just makes the Steam Deck OLED such a more valuable purchase. The Steam Deck just offers a little bit more to the end user at a cheaper price. If you want a handheld PC gaming console, I highly recommend going with the Steam Deck OLED. It is just the definitive way to play PC games on the go, in my opinion. The library spans decades, and you will just find yourself playing all kinds of games incredibly quickly right after you open the box. That being said though, if there are a ton of little things you want to do and specific stuff you want to try out that need Windows, then get the ROG Ally X. It has Windows. And as tedious as it can be on a handheld experience like this, Windows does offer value to people wanting to do specific things. If you want to play a ton of multiplayer games on the go, then get the ROG Ally X. It can be more costly, but there's some really good and powerful hardware in this thing. Either way, these are my opinions. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Members are active on the channel if you want to join and be a part of this YouTube channel with me. Thank you so much to D Sanchez for being a member. And hey, thank you so much for watching this video. Peace.